energy is what's really shaping our future, and we want it to be a part of the entire package.
Hi, I'm Veronica Van Wollen, and joining us today is Warren Stanyer, CEO and Chairman at ALX Resources. ALX is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange on the Venture under the ticker symbol AL. It's also listed on the OTC and the Frankfurt Exchange. Warren, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing well. Thank you, Veronica.
So I want us to chat today about ALX and get into it for investors to hear about your story and what you have plans for 2021. You're an exploration company focused exclusively on energy metals. And leading off of that, why don't you jump in and tell investors a little bit about who ALX is?
Well, ALX started as exclusively a uranium company. And what we realized over time was that there was a lot of other opportunities in the marketplace that we were not ignoring, we were aware of them, but why not participate? And what's happening now with all the focus on electrification, on electric cars, there's a huge demand growing for nickel, copper, cobalt, and uranium as well, because where's the power supposed to come from? And energy is what's really shaping our future, and we want it to be a part of the entire package. So here we are as ALX Resources Corp.
I like that. So when it comes to energy metals, what kind of metals are you focusing on in the portfolio?
Well, right now, our primary project is the Firebird Nickel Project in northern Saskatchewan. It was for years called the Fond du Lac Nickel Project. There were some deposits on the property that had been explored by others, but they had been left for over 10 years. There was a staking rush in 2019 that we participated in. And then we bought properties from other parties that had also participated. So we put together a very large property that had these known deposits on it. At that point, we started talking to major companies, the ones that we knew were involved in nickel. And out of that came an offer from Rio Tinto, which is the second largest mining company in the world and a great partner. We spoke with them through the summer, signed a deal in August. And here we are today after completing an airborne survey with the leading edge helicopter-borne electromagnetic survey. And there's anomalies on the property that were never seen in the past. Nobody knew they were there. And we're just very happy to see this and can't wait to get a drill on the ground.
So Warren, I know that you used to be called ALX Uranium. Does the company still have an interest in uranium as well?
Well, we certainly do. I mean, my first love in this business was uranium because it was so hard to find, and it was the cost per ton or the value per ton was huge. When I remember back in the late 90s when we started looking at uranium, and my president, Stephen Sorensen, looked at the value per ton. When you have 20% uranium, that means you have 440 pounds of uranium per metric ton, and when it's $20 a pound, that's $800 per ton. Well, that just totally eclipses all other metals. It doesn't matter what it is, everything. There's nothing in the world more valuable when you get into those kind of grades. And so the Athabasca Basin is where they were. My career was founded on that, and I got to know a lot of people in the uranium business, which has led to a discovery in 2012 at Patterson Lake, which is now, with the additional discoveries made after, it was our 50-50 joint venture that found what's now the Triple R deposit. That was Alpha Minerals and Fission Uranium. NextGen then found the Arrow deposit, and Pure Point Uranium has found the Spitfire showing, or the discovery, and Dragon. Now, our company still has Hook Carter. The Hook Carter project is on trend with those discoveries that are now adding up to about 400 million pounds or so. Denison Mines bought 80% of Hook Carter from us in 2016. So we look forward to them drilling again. Right now they have a deal to they own 80%, but they have to spend $12 million before we have to contribute. And they're just past halfway on that. So we're looking forward to more work at Hook Carter in the most prolific trend that's been found in the last decade.
Talk to us a little bit about what were the main highlights of last year.
Well, the highlights were expanding and developing the Falcon Nickel project, which became Firebird. We started drilling there north of Stony Rapids, Saskatchewan in March of 2020. It was an unusual time, as we all know. COVID-19, the pandemic was starting to grow its momentum. And here we were in a remote place with remote communities around us. We drilled 3 holes, and we decided at the end of March that we had to leave. It was in the best interest of all. We did prove that there was high-grade nickel on the property. We got 2 meters of just under 1% nickel in 1 hole. So as a start, with 3 short holes, that was a great start. At that point, it was, okay, what do we do next? One thing we could do in 2020, where it was a low impact, not as many people for as long a period of time, is prospecting. So we did more prospecting throughout. We also went to Ontario, which is another story, the Vixen Gold Project. But we became like Navy SEALs, coming in on helicopters, landing, people jumping out, grabbing samples, mapping, doing all the things that geologists do so well, and coming back with some great results, not only on Firebird, but also on the Vixen Gold Project. So that occupied us through the summer. At that point, we negotiated that deal with Rio Tinto and started an airborne survey in the fall of 2020. So here we are today with targets that are very compelling, begging to be drilled. So that pretty much sums up the year.
Okay. And I know you mentioned some of the portfolio assets that you have, and there are quite a few under the ALX umbrella. What is the main focus of the company right now?
Getting our nickel projects drilled. Also at the Vixen Gold Project in Ontario, we've developed a very strong project there. We're in an area that was a little more remote, but it's near the Springpole Gold Project, which is 4.6 million ounces of gold plus. And for me personally, seeing the Springpole project develop, it was very personal, because on the floor that I started my mining career on, the 12th floor at 609 Granville in Vancouver, was Gold Canyon Resources. And they were just beginning their Springpole exploration at that time. So here we are 25 years later plus, and that deposit is now 4.6 million ounces. And we are nearby. We have a similar trend. We have similar geological features at the Vixen project. So we're excited about the possibilities here. And we find First Mining to be a great neighbor. They've offered to help us at times with roads. Now with COVID, there's more impact. We can't share a camp together because it's too large. So we have our own plans for a camp, but we're in a very great area. Obviously, Red Lake, there's been 28 million ounces of gold mined in the last 80 years, 90 years. This is an iconic mining camp in Canada, and we're pleased to be a part of it. We staked the claims in 2019, before everything really exploded, and here we are now with a very viable project at Vixen. So that's another project where we have a permit application in waiting, and we plan to drill this winter, the winter of 2021.
Okay. So if I'm hearing correctly, is the main kind of business model for ALX, you're looking at new assets, you're acquiring them, you're exploring them, and then to what point do you take them to?
Well, as a junior explorer, I think every junior explorer's goal is to sell a project to a major company. I mean, in the time that I've been in the business, I've been the subject of takeovers by Barrick Gold Corporation. Fission Uranium was bigger than us when they bought out Alpha Minerals at Patterson Lake in 2013. You look at the Hathor acquisition. I was not directly a part of that, obviously, but that was a $640 million acquisition by Hathor, of Hathor by Rio Tinto. These are the types of things that we do. We build and develop projects from nothing that people didn't even want. I mean, the Rough Rider discovery for Hathor was an example of a very small claim that they staked, and it had been dropped by a major company. I won't say who to save them the embarrassment. And they found a major deposit that sold for $640 million. So that's what we all want. That's what our shareholders want. Mm-hmm. So it's really just carrying out our shareholders' hopes and dreams and wishes, as well as our own, let's just say, what makes us tick as prospectors with very modern tools and finding things that people couldn't see before.
Yeah. And you told me off the record here that you guys are using quite a lot of new techniques when it comes to exploration. Tell us a little bit more about that. What does that entail?
Well, generally, in our type of exploration when you go into an area that's been rejected by previous explorers. It was explored in the 60s and 70s, and commodity prices at that time didn't support further exploration, and they couldn't see things that we can see now. We fly over a large area, and conductive bodies from a helicopter-borne electromagnetic survey, they jump out. We see them very, very quickly. We can model them with computer programs that weren't available until about 10 years ago or so. We can see how the body lies in space. Is it flat? Is it vertical? Which way does it tilt? And then when you're drilling a hole, here I am waving my arms, but when you're drilling a hole, you want to be able to contact that body at the optimum angle. So you need to know how it lies in space. Our previous explorers, the historical guys, they didn't have that. They were doing the best they could. But what we can use is all the data that they generated, combine that with our modern tools, and boy, oh boy, do things start to stand out. And then you start to see, okay, they just caught a piece of it over here, but here's a big body that's deeper, very conductive, that they couldn't see. And now we're going to put a hole in it at this angle, and bingo, a discovery. That's what we do. So
you mentioned how, and you said this a little bit earlier, Rio Tinto, were they the ones that specifically reached out to you about that nickel project that you have? And maybe just elaborate a little bit more on that, because it's quite significant for investors and prospective investors to hear a little bit more about that.
It is a great story for us because it's a validation of all the things that I've been saying. The big companies, they have a lot of advanced projects. They don't often start from scratch like we did in this particular case. Now, as I said, at Firebird, there were deposits already found, but they weren't economic. They weren't economic in the 1950s or 60s or 70s, and they're still not today. But what we did is we saw where the highest grades on the property were. We went there, we collected more samples, we did some work on the ground, leading edge geochemical surveys, more ground surveys that with equipment that wasn't available back in the old days, as we say. So here we are, it's the summer. We've already talked to Rio Tinto about the project, and we get a call that they want to do something. They've decided that our area has promise, because where there is nickel that is found on surface, and we've proved it with the drill that there's geophysical anomalies that are, when they're contacted with the drill, they have nickel in them, and it can be high grade. That makes that discrete look at the project more of it's less risk for them. Let's put it that way. What I'm trying to tell you is when things stand out like a neon sign, and all the rocks around them are known to be barren, there's a higher probability that you will find a mineral deposit in that area. So that's what drew them to us, was this is lower risk. And we managed to do enough work to show them that the nickel is there. And that's what they're after. They're a miner, and they're after the future, which is the next 2 decades is just going to be a massive amount of nickel that's going to be required for the world's energy needs.
Right. The capital that you raised last year was close to $2 million. Are you going to be using most of that capital towards the nickel project?
Well, Rio Tinto is spending the money. So over 6 years, in order for them to earn 80%, that they have to spend $12 million and pay us $125,000 in cash, which is a modest cash payment. In the first 3 years, they need to spend $3 million. So that's really the test. What will we find in the first drilling program, and hopefully the second, that keeps Rio Tinto interested enough to keep spending money? And then we potentially would end up with in a case of a discovery or prolonged development, we'd have a 20% interest, which is enough to be significant in a takeover scenario. Who knows? Who knows what will happen in the future? We have to make the discovery first. But from what I see in the data, what we have announced is that there's very strong anomalies on the Firebird property that have never been touched with a drill. So that's exciting that we're going in there with a great partner, and I hope that we'll make a discovery for our shareholders.
Yeah. When will drilling begin at that property?
We're very close to having a permit application approved. We're engaging with local communities right now, just to make sure that every place that we go to is not something that's important to them in terms of, say, food harvesting or any cultural or spiritual significance. These are very important matters in Canada today that we're obviously observing, and so is Rio Tinto. So we expect to have a permit this month or early next, and for the best drilling opportunities when you're using a helicopter to drop drills in is starting in early March, because the light is now a lot longer. We have longer days. And of course, helicopters operate on visual flight rules, so that's important. So that's when we expect to be drilling.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more then about 2021 and what the plans are and what investors can expect for this year ahead of us.
Well, the plans is, of course, with Firebird and Vixen is the same, to get drills on the ground, to test our theories. We've done a lot of groundwork. We've flown with the airborne geophysical surveys that can tell us the structure and something about the geological structure below. So those are the two tests right now. We have other airborne surveys planned at the electronickel project, the Cannon Copper project. We're just discussing those surveys right now with the survey contractor, and we hope to have those going in the spring, in late winter and early spring here. So there's a lot going on, and it's a lot for our company to handle, but we have a great geological crew. One of our directors, Jody DeRouge, runs DeRouge Consulting out of Edmonton. They have a very experienced team. I've been to their office in Edmonton. It's more like it's just a huge building full of geologists and a library of geological reports that Jody has amassed. So you can look up any project, any place in Canada and know something about it, as well as all the assessment work that's available online in Canada, which is a gift to all explorers in Canada. So we're prepared, we're ready. We just need to get the drills turning.
Okay.
That'll be the outcome of 2021 for us.
We'll be drilling and hopefully some positive results. So how much money is in the treasury right now? Will you need to go back to the market soon to raise more funds?
Well, as I said, for Firebird, that's Rio Tinto expending their funds. For Vixen, we have flow-through that was reserved for that project. We always have to go back to the market. I mean, junior mining companies, they're like sharks swimming. You have to keep swimming. We need to raise money all the time. The question is, we need success in our work to make that fundraising, let's say, more expeditious.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you mentioned you have quite a strong ownership, insider ownership for the company. I think you said close to 30%. Maybe just tell us a little bit about the ownership of the company and the structure.
We have a major shareholder, Holy Stone Energy. They own 25 million shares, and they have at least 7 million warrants as well. Dundee Management out of Wealth Management, or I'm just trying to think of which fund it is out of the Dundee family, but the Dundee family in Toronto is also a declared insider. And then between myself, Jody DeRouge, and some of the other insiders, there's about 35% of the issued and outstanding stock that's held in a small group of people and entities.
Okay. So most important question here, I think investors are going to have is, why should new investors looking at ALX invest in the story today?
Well, there's a lot of clamor in the marketplace, isn't there? We have a great team that's been assembled over a number of years, people that have been involved in discoveries and takeovers, and that's important. Not only to have a great geological team, but to have a great corporate team that understands how to keep your head up in this marketplace, meet all the regulatory requirements. Nobody wants to, run afoul of that, to break your propeller on some rock that you couldn't see. All of this is important. It's a combination of the corporate side and the exploration side, and we have both.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add for new and existing shareholders tuning in today?
Well, I would say that the combination of the two halves, as I just described, and how we go about our exploration, how we look at everything that was done historically that we can find. We combine that with the modern techniques that are available to us. The geophysics, the airborne geophysics just keeps getting better. There's new geochemical surveys like SGH, which can find traces of a buried mineral deposit. We know this is true. The question is putting it all together, stacking it all, as we say, stacking the layers, and deciding where to put a drill and at what angle. So that's what we do day in and day out. It's like an obsession with us.
I can sense the passion in it. Okay, Warren, well, that's the time for us here today. I want to thank you again for joining us, and for everyone tuning in. We were speaking with Warren Stanyer, CEO and Chairman at ALX Resources, and ALX is listed on the Toronto Stocks Venture under the ticker symbol AL. They also have an OTC listing and a Frankfurt listing. So Warren, thanks again for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you, Veronica. All the best for 2021.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thanks.